Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, thank you so much for joining us again here on the Plain Truth podcast, where we bring you the plain truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We based that on John 17:17, sanctified him through that truth. Our word is truth. And so we want to thank you for always tuning in and for following along. And if it's your first time with us, thank you so much for joining us. This episode that we are doing currently has a few preceding episodes, so we would invite you to check out those before you delve into this one because we do cover some of the groundwork there. But essentially, we've been talking about the qualifications of an elder, pastor, bishop, shepherd, overseer. All of those terms pretty much share in the same qualifications for the same office. And so, in our previous episodes, we've discussed what it means for them to be blameless. We've discussed what it means for them to be the husband of one wife. And in this episode, we discuss another very interesting and sometimes very contentious topic of having or ruling their own households well and having believing children. And so please get your Bibles, join us as we discuss this next qualification about an elder having believing children, him ruling his own household well. And we hope that you will be able to follow along with us and that the discussion will be fruitful. Be blessed. So we're talking about eldership, right? We're talking about whether your pastor could be a pastor or should be a pastor, and whether your pastor qualifies, meets the qualifications of what the Bible requires of them to be, to need to be a pastor. And so we've been talking about First Timothy chapter 3, and we've been in Titus chapter 1. And if you have your Bibles, you can follow along with us. And essentially, what we've been going through the qualifications of an elder or pastor or bishop or presbyter or overseer or shepherd, right? All of these terms are used interchangeably for the same office. And so over the last couple of episodes, we've been talking about the elder having to be blameless. And then, we spoke a little bit about that. And then we spoke about him being the husband of one wife, right? And so if you are interested in those topics, you can watch our previous episodes. And so today we're going to cover another contentious topic, and that is that the elder must have, we'll call it believing children, right? But Timothy describes it differently. Titus describes it differently. So if you're with us there in First Timothy chapter 3, he says there start at verse 4, right? He says, one that ruleth his own household well, right? He says he rules his own household well. And then he says, having children in subjection with all gravity. For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God? So that's Timothy. And then page over to Titus chapter 1, reading on there from verse 5, but then we'll start in verse 6 for purpose of today. It says, if any be blameless, the husband of one wife, having faithful children, not accused of riot or unruly. All right, so gents, got another contentious one here on hand. Lots of things that we can discuss, and I'm sure that our viewers will also have probably different views to us. But I think let's get into the text, right? So we're talking about the elder having to rule his own house well, having his children in subjection or gravity, right? And then Titus would say, Paul would write to Titus that he must have believing children, right? So what does that? I mean, what comes to mind? Any thoughts initially?
Yeah, I think we mentioned, and as we dealt with the other topics prior, what does the text definitely mean? Okay, so I think without a doubt, it definitely means that they are children. That's, I think, the starting point. And I think something I've mentioned also before was that these are present qualifications. So if I look at you right now, do you meet all of these qualifications, right? And I know a lot of people can say, or some of the comments that we might have heard is, if this person were to, I think when we spoke about the marriage as well, if the person were to be married, he would be faithful, right? But that's not a present qualification. At the present time, the person doesn't meet that qualification. So I would say for this one, at the present time, does this person have children? If he does not, I think it's a non-starter. We aren't even in the conversation. Yeah. But the beginning qualification, if we look as we're looking at this one today, they are children. The person has children.
Yeah, and I think we have to be in the text, right? So, I mean, there's these beautiful words called eisegeting and exegeting, right? So, someone would be eisegeting you, reading into the text what you want, want the text to say. They would put in if he were to be
Mm.
Like a husband, and he had children, his children would be obedient, or he would be the husband of one wife. But that's not how we interpret the Bible. Right? We want to exegete, we want to take out of the passage what it says, right? We want to insert our own thoughts in there. So yeah, so Timothy says that he must rule his own house well, right? And have his children in subjection with full gravity. So let's talk about this thing, children. Right? So we know that he definitely needs to have children.
Yeah.
So what if this guy, has one child? Must he have multiple children? Must he have one child? What are we talking about? Because he definitely must have children. Right?
Yeah.
So I guess the question would come up: does this person need to have? What if the person has one child? We'll talk a little bit later about how the character of these kids and how old they should be. But I think let's start there. That might be one of the questions. Thoughts?
I can give a simple analogy. Let's let's take this cup, right? Let's say this is my cup. That's your cup. That's your cup. So I take this mug, and you tell me to bring all my mugs. I only have one mug. I brought my mug, but you refer to it as mugs. Obviously, if I not refer to the mug itself, I'm refer to it as a mug. But if you refer to my mugs, it is only this one, and it is a valid way to refer to it.
Yeah, I mean, someone's gonna ask you the question. If you have one child, someone's gonna ask you, "Do you have children?" Are you gonna say no? Like, that's the question. And someone comes up to you and they're like, "What do you have?" I mean, let me ask you. This man, you got multiple kids, there's qualification, right? So someone comes to you, "When do you have kids?" What are you gonna say?
Oh wow! Because I'm technical, I'm gonna say I have a daughter.
Right? You're not gonna be there like, "No, I don't."
I'm definitely not gonna say no.
Exactly, right? But the one child being there, and I think that's sufficient, right? And there are contexts in which the Bible refers to people having children, even though they had one child. I think the example that's normally cited is that of Abram, right? I don't know if you want to get into that.
I think Wade had the scripture reference.
I had it. Let me just check it.
Yeah. And I think it's a good point of reference for if you want to answer this question about children versus one child, right? And I think we must have common sense as well in our interpretation. But this is one of those things where, like I say, if someone's going to ask you, "Do you have children?" You're not going to say no, even if you have one child, right? So the understanding there would be that one child would be sufficient to meet the qualification.
Yeah. And like just the way that I reason about it, I see you kind of have the verse there. The way that I reason about this qualification and others as well, is I try and think why they are there. Obviously, this person filling the role of an overseer, giving oversight to families, to brethren in the church, also counseling, also assisting with certain problems that they might have. There are certain lessons that you only learn through experience. And I think, especially when you think about marriage and when you think about raising children, raising one child, raising multiple children, I think there are certain lessons that you only learn because the children are there. I think also, whether there's maybe one child or multiple children, you do gain that experience because you have raised that child.
Yeah.
But do you have that verse there?
I do. So it's in Genesis chapter 21, verse 7. And it is as follows. So it's she also said, "Who would have said to Abram that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age." So she has one son, but refers to him as
First of all, as having children, right? I think that's important. I suppose another question that would come up about this guy having children is when the kids are adopted.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think to my point that I just made, right? Again, to that experience. So I don't think I don't know if this is a bit too crude in the way I'm saying it. I don't think it is a qualification to see the fertility of the person.
Yes.
I think it's a qualification to see the character of the person, to see how he leads, how he's able to nurture, how he's able to encourage, how he's able to build up others, how he's able to lead others towards God. I think that's the qualification, right? So yes, it is. We are going to obviously look closer at the character of the child, but it's not the child that is being assessed. Yeah, it is the father's ability to lead the child that's being assessed.
Yeah.
So it's not whether it is his biological child. If he has gone through the process of raising the child, I think he's got that experience that is needed to be able to then also manage the church well, right?
Yeah.
As it says
Yeah.
in Timothy.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, right? I think I was just gonna say that I think verse 5 is key
Yeah.
there in First Timothy chapter 3. If a man doesn't know how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God? Right? And I think that's going to be the overarching not qualification, but way to interpret this verse or this qualification for the elder, right? If he needs to have faithful children or believing children, and them not being accused of whatever Titus says, or if they are in subjection, you're going to assess that by looking at whether this guy actually has his household under control. And that's what people are going to look at, right? People in the world, there's this other qualification that's going to say in verse 7, you must have a good report of them that are without, right? People, and then obviously it needs to be blameless, right? So people are going to look at you and they're going to assess, and they're going to look at your house is, not in order. You can't even control your own kids, so they're going to look at that kind of thing. And then assess you based on that. So, but I think we are getting a little bit into the characteristics of these children, right? So I think let's start with before we get into the what ifs, right? And I know people are excited to get into the what if this, what if that. And we've covered some of them already in respect of just having children, but what does the text now say about these children, right? What do they have to? I guess what are their characteristics looking like?
And I think when we look at the two passages together, it gives us some positive and then it gives us some negative characteristics, right? So I think it is Timothy that says that they are submissive children. Right, keeping his children submissive. I think when I look at Titus, Titus has some of the negative qualifications there. I'm reading the ESV and it says that they are debaucherous, they are insubordinate. And then I think it also has the positive there, which is as mine reads, believers, children that are believers.
I just want to correct you.
Yeah.
They are not debaucherous. Not insubordinate.
Yeah, that's what they're not supposed to be. So I'm saying that the qualifications, as I mentioned, they are the negative qualifications. The negative qualifications are debaucherous and insubordinate. And then the positive qualifications, the ones that they should have, are that as the ESV will say believers. I think you read from the King James, which said faithful, which is not an issue because it comes from the same word. And then submissive from Timothy, right? That being the positive ones, the ones that they should have. So I think when we look at these children, these words are either supposed to be with them or not supposed to be with them. I'm going to give you some time, and I've got some of the definitions here for some of these words. So I will look at that while you guys maybe go.
Do you have anything on that, sir? Do you want me to go?
You can go.
So I think we, it's important to look at what the text actually, like we just established, like what the text actually says. And I think it's important for these kids to actually, there needs to be a certain level of spirituality to them. There needs to be a certain level of God-fearingness to them. And they are ultimately going to reflect their father, so, and then I think that's what it gets at, right? You spoke earlier about what is this guy teaching to the kids, or what are they, and it's when they look at these children, they're going to gauge what kind of things the father taught them, right? So if you're looking at you'll get into the definitions, right? If you're looking at a faithful child, to me, when it speaks about that faithfulness, I would assume this kid is going to be, obey the gospel, that they're going to serve the Lord, and as I said, we'll get into the what ifs, right? But the faithfulness there to me would be to God, because your father is faithful to God. So if someone's going to judge your father based on your faithfulness, they're going to be like, okay, you as the elder, you've led your kids to Christ. And so that makes you obviously, a bit more effective in your role as the elder. So I think that's a little bit about where my mind goes when it speaks about how these kids are, the characteristics of these kids.
And as much as I want to get into this, the words that I've got here, I think you make a very important point there about that faithfulness, because it's not something that is very like pie in the sky, man. It's not airy fairy when we think about faithfulness in itself. And even as Christians, right, aside from what we're chatting about here, if we truly say we have faith, that must have it must have a huge impact on our lives.
Yeah.
You can't say that you have faith and you are living life. Almost want to say normal, or like what is normal to the standard of the world. There must be something different in you, right? You can't say you have faith and you are just exactly like the world. You have to be, as Romans chapter 12 speaks about, being transformed, not conforming to the pattern of this world. So if I say I have faith, that must shape my world, must shape my life, and it must impact everything that I do. Simply saying that I have faith is not some wishy-washy thing that I say, a declaration I make, and I just go on living my life. It's something that impacts everything that I do. Right? So I just think that there must be some weight behind that statement when I say, and even if we in the text here, when we say that there's faithfulness, right? When we say that there's pistis, when we say that there's belief, there's some weight behind that statement. It's not just simply believing that there is a God, but is that my entire life is governed by the fact that I truly believe that God is real and that He came and He died for my sin. I truly believe that, so that impacts everything that I do. It's not pie in the sky kind of faith. It's a faith that means something.
Yeah, no, my kids are out there, but they believe there's a God.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, right? And again, it reflects on you as the elder, right? And you as the viewer, we know these things, right? We know how people speak about pastors and their kids, and it reflects badly on that person. Your father is a pastor, but you carry on like this, or they see their kids outside and they're like, yeah, but his father is a this, but he carries on like that. People look at those things, and so you don't just give your father a bad name, but you give the church and Christ a bad name. And I think that's the seriousness of the matter. And I think even as kids, if there are these kinds of conversations happening in your household, I think it's important for you to grasp that you have an active role to play, or you have a very important role to play in ensuring that your family actually qualifies, that your father qualifies, and it's something to take seriously. And if you are, and these kids, as we will get into it, would be at the age of accountability. And I think we have to say that God is going to keep you accountable for that. He's going to hold you accountable for that. It's something that we have to take seriously, because it's not just on your father. It is a family. This is a family role. If you look at all of the qualifications, you must be the husband of one wife. There, the wife is brought into it. Right, we'll chat about some of the other characteristics or qualifications in the following episodes, right? As to how your wife or the mother can be very effective in those other roles. And here, the children, there's a responsibility placed on you, right? On us as children, or if our parents would like to stand in these offices. So I think it's something to take note of. I think I'll pause it there.
Sorry, I'm gonna lose my thought. These stuff right here. But like as you were talking, so I'm thinking like, so the context of this is Timothy and Titus need to find elders, and the time they have is not infinite. So the children also serve as evidence of their capability, which is stated also in verses 5 of Timothy. So like I'm thinking like, my daughter, so what I do, she does. And after all, you don't notice this immediately. But like I'll say something and she'll be like, I mean, she's 2 years old and she's taking on mannerisms of me. So as an elder, what you do, your children are going to do. So one of the qualifications in Timothy, it's about reverence. And what came to mind was Josiah's example and stuck with me is that so we've gone through that there should be more than one elder. So let's say you've got 3 elders, for example. It's going to be easier. If your children are faithful, let's say you have 3 children, 2 of them, they come to an agreement, the other one doesn't. An immature way to deal with it, you'll be spiteful, you'll be upset. Same with eldership. If you've got 3, even when the other 2 are not in agreement with you, if the decision is for the betterment of the church, you should have the reverence and the respect to accept that and to still fulfill and be faithful regardless of that not being your personal desired outcome. So your children, the way they behave, it's a reflection, unfortunately, of how you have reared them up. And yes, there are outside factors in the world, but even as an elder, there are going to be outside factors in the secular world that are going to influence your flock. So your children are evidence of how you have reared them up, and there are these challenges.
No, there's
But
a
yeah,
there's a benchmark that is set, right? There's a standard that is set. As the elder, as much as you're an ordinary member there in the church, right? Once you're gonna stand in the office, the attention, the spotlight's now on you, and people are looking at you, and they're going to benchmark you against this criteria. Right? People are going to look at you, and they're going to read the text, and they need to see you in the text. And as soon as we start clashing between your actual life and the text, there are going to be other questions that are going to, start popping up. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I had quite a bit of thoughts. I don't know how many of them I still have.
Yeah, I want to get into something after.
We'll see. And I still haven't given my definitions though.
Yeah. Maybe that's homework for the viewers.
Something that comes to mind is like and maybe you had some of the same experiences. At times I catch myself doing certain things that I think, that's like just like my dad, man. And I didn't intentionally want to do it, and I said, so at sometimes I say certain things to the kids, not realizing, and I sound just like my dad. And I think to myself, so it's not always a conscious thing that we realize that we are act like our parents have acted.
Yeah.
So some of their things rub off on us, and I'm sure there's so much that we do because of those who have come before us. There's certain things that we do, there's certain things that we don't do because of certain of the lifestyles that we've seen our parents involve themselves in. So we've learned some lessons from that. So I think there is such a huge impact that we as parents have on our children without even realizing it, without even them realizing it, and maybe not realize. Maybe the word I'm looking for is sometimes it's not intentional, but that impact is there. So I wanted to say that. Then I had some other things also that came to mind. One of them was this. I think words mean what they mean. Especially when we think about faithful. If I say someone is faithful, I think everyone knows what it means. Right? And this might be a bit on the nose, but sometimes we try to water down certain things so that it can become more accessible for us. So because we have this person in mind that we want to be an elder, we kind of lessen what we think faithful means in this context, so that person can be fit in this role. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I see it so frequently happen. Like when you look in movies and media, right? So many people change their standards because now that has come onto their doorstep. And I don't want to fall into the trap where I change the way I look at something because these are the circumstances that I'm currently in. And I think a lot of people do that, and that's why they change the way that they look at something, because now this is the situation they're in. So now I need to understand it differently so that I can actually fit into that situation.
Yep.
So I think let's just not fall into that space. It means what it means. Okay, can I finally get into my definition? Right. So insubordination, right? The word is disorder. It speaks to unsettledness. It speaks to confusion. It speaks to I'm just trying to go through some of this. A lack of lack of standing, unsettledness, disorder, confusion. I think I mentioned those before. It's the opposite of having things in order. Right. So someone that is insubordinate. No, was this insubordinate? Is someone that's insubordinate. They are living their lives without order, without structure in their lives. Okay. Second one, debauchery. The first one that comes up, moral ruin, riot, recklessness, dissoluteness, a life of excess and license, wild and reckless living, a state of not safe, living not safe, And then some of the other ones, I can't find it here, but one of the ones that I found last time spoke about giving into the personal or the personal desires that you have, right? So this idea of being a debaucherous lifestyle is giving into all physical desires that you have. Most of the time, those are associated with sexual desires, with alcohol abuse, substance abuse, the giving into those kind of things. That's debaucherous living. So those are some of the definitions that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, good stuff.
Something popped into my head and then it popped out because I was so engaged.
All right. No, but I mean, so you mentioned about some people trying to fit themselves into, and I think there are sometimes grounds to probe a text, right? I think that would be textbook eisegesis, right? You're looking at your life and you're like, okay, how can I fit my stuff into this text and interpret it in a way that it suits me so that I can now qualify to be an elder?
And sometimes it's not that explicitly said, right? But inwardly we unintentionally do that.
Yeah. So then you get to all of the what ifs, right? What if this and what if that? But I think there are. I mean, obviously, someone that's gonna, they're gonna now watch this. We already covered that. What if you have multiple kids, right? Or must you have one child? But now let's say you do have multiple children, okay, and then let's say we mustn't do percentages, but then let's look at it from that perspective. I'm sure someone's gonna be there. Well, I have 4 kids, and 3 of them are faithful. One of them is wilding out. He's doing his own thing out there.
60%.
Yeah. He's doing his own thing. I don't know. You must be maths there. Isn't that 75? Isn't that 75?
You said 5 kids.
No, I said 4. 3 of them are wilding out.
I think you said 5 kids and 3.
I said 4, bro.
You said 4? Okay, 75. Okay, we'll check.
Go and watch your clip back, bro. So then there's this one. 3 of them are faithful. They're there. They worshiping God, and they are just the father's dream. But there's this one that's like hard-headed, and he's out there, he's wilding out. Now, text says you must have faithful children. Yeah, faithful children.
Can I bring my cups in there?
Bring your cups in.
So there's blue. Well, all the cups are white, but this says a blue finish, black finish.
Zwart skaapie.
Yeah, so we'll say blue cup, black cup. These are all my cups now. I have 3 cups. 2 of them are blue, 1 of them are black. You asked me, do I have blue cups? Yes, I do have blue cups. Not all of them are blue, but I do have blue cups. So, same concept with children. Do I have faithful children? 2 of them are faithful, one of them are not. Do I have faithful children? Yes, I do. But like what Wilma said is, what is the pass mark?
Yeah, that becomes the contention for me, right? It's like, who decides how much is a pass? What is the pass percentage? Right? Let's say I've got 2 kids. One is good, one's not so good. Now I'm at 50%. Is 50% the pass? Or let's say I've got 5 children and I've got 60% passing. Is a 60% the pass? Who decides? So that's where it falls apart for me. Like I understand it and I understand the logic, and I can't really fight against the logic because it sounds good, but I don't know it. Who decides what's pass and what's not? What is 30% the pass? Because if I've got 3 kids, 2 are wilding out and 1 is faithful, do I pass? Because like I do have a faithful child.
In South Africa, guys.
Oh man. Yeah. Right. Well, look.
Look. Yeah. Like my view, I don't think there's gonna be a black and white view from me, but I think it's more so like you've given your logic, right, your way of thinking, and I think you can't really fault that, right? I would also just venture an interpretation, and I think it's we're not inserting anything in the text. We just read the text for what it says, right? Yeah, it says that you must have faithful children. You're gonna say yes, but someone's gonna be like, but there's this one, right? So your children is gonna be all of your children. Your children are gonna be your children, right? And so if someone asks if you have faithful children, right, you're gonna be your answer is always gonna be qualified. You're never gonna be able to look at the text and say, I do have faithful children. But you're gonna have a but, right? But there's the one that's so I think that's the textual argument. I think the other argument I would make is one of again, what is the general like ethos of this of the passage here? You know, of what's the context here? What are we trying to get to? We're trying to get to an elder that is blameless. We're trying to get to an elder that has a reputation that is good with those that are without and those in the congregation. We're trying to get to an elder that's going to be effective in how he's going to manage the affairs of the church, and an elder that manages his own household well, right? And there are going to be question marks with this guy if there's one kid wilding out. Okay, so that's where I would go with my argument, right? And so, as an elder, right, if someone comes to you and their kids are wilding out and their kids are not, obedient or whatever, they have issues, are you going to be able to effectively counsel with that family to bring their kids to Christ if you have a kid that is not in Christ or that's rebellious at the moment, right? So I think that's something to think about. That's the how I would approach having that kind of conversation, right? So yeah, I think that's something that would need to be considered by the congregation that's trying to appoint this person as an elder. I think you're going to see this and need to ask the question as to whether this guy is blameless, and then what does that look like? We spoke about that in our previous episodes, so you can check that out. Right. And then you're gonna need to consider the context, because you're also not just going to the elders are not elected in a vacuum, right? You're gonna look at context, you're gonna look at the strengths of that person, what they can bring, and then you're gonna consider all of these factors. And so I think it needs to be a holistic approach.
I feel that that depends in terms of depends, man. Like in our situation, we don't have an eldership, so it's a bit more challenging. But suppose you already have an eldership and they've identified someone who's potentially also going to be an elder, your assumption is that these elders are mature. So I agree with your take. I don't know what is the right answer. What is the percentage? Is there even a percentage? Um, I don't think it's the extreme of if you have one unfaithful child that you are just absolutely disqualified. There's no way back. I mean, the degree of unfaithfulness should also be brought into question. But I think this is for the mature Christian, the congregation, or the eldership, the leadership, whatever it is. Things need to be taken into consideration. It's not just a matter of to say 75% is the pass mark, 80 is the pass. It depends on the context. Like even in scripture, in Crete, their climate was different, so different things needed to be considered. So I think it depends, and I don't think it's up to us to insert any sort of even ballpark figure.
Yeah, I think it does become challenging, and I think it comes to, in my mind, effectiveness, as you mentioned, and then also how am I well? How is that person thought of by outsiders? How is that person thought of by those inside the church? Does that is there this cloud hanging over this person because of whatever the situation is in? And I think if that cloud is still hanging over that person, then I think it disqualifies them.
Yeah, there are other questions.
Yeah, so I do think it's one to look into. I think it's a difficult one, but
yeah.
And
let's talk about the one. Did you have something else?
I thought of something different. Like if you have an unfaithful child, oh, what just left me.
So it's part of that, right? So let's say there are people that have kids that are grown, they are adults, they're out of the household, right? So now people make the argument that my children are out of the household, they are Christians, or they've gone and they've started their own families, so they're out of the house, and so now they're not serving the Lord anymore. But I'm here, I'm the elder, and I'm faithful, and I guess my kids are, they still respect me as their father, right? But they're not here, they're not serving, they're out of my household, so it's not part of my household. Timothy says you must manage your household.
Yeah.
Right. Any thoughts on that argument?
Look, I think that's one we heard all too frequently. But I think that's why the definitions are so important to me. Because when we think about debauchery and we think about this riotous lifestyle, we think about this person that is giving himself over to all of the desires that he wants to. He's living an unsettled life, a life that's not in order. When I think about all of these qualifications, and I try and think about the person that is able to live that kind of lifestyle, I don't think that that is a person that is a teenager in the house. I, I don't think a teenager in the house has the means, the ability to be able to give himself over to any desires that he has. I don't think he can come and go as he pleases, and I don't think he can just, have whatever he wants. He probably doesn't have all of the resources to do that, right? I think that we can only truly find out if a person is debaucherous or not is when he's got the opportunity to be debaucherous. And so now this person is on their own. They have their own home. They are sustaining themselves.
Yeah.
They're not reliant on you. So like when I think about the family situation, like a lot of times there's obedience because of um, coerced obedience. You have to be obedient because you need me. You are dependent on me. You have to be obedient because you know that I need to get you to work. I need to give you the resources so that you can do this and do that. So there's obedience because you want something from me. But I think the true test of obedience, the true test of respect, the true test of faithfulness is when you are no longer reliant on me, are you still faithful? When you're no longer reliant on me, are you still living that kind of lifestyle? If you are solely obedient because you need something from me, I don't think that's obedience. I think that is cunningness. I think so. That's where it comes from. I think it has to extend to the child that is outside of the house because that's the only child that has the opportunity to be insubordinate and to be debaucherous. That's how I understand.
That applies to that person.
Yeah.
I don't know, you're gonna give your part about the.
I've got another point on
At
that.
that point, yeah, was it you? Is it your point that you're gonna? And then there's another one that I'm gonna probe you.
Wait back, guys. Wait back.
So my other point is this.
Those who've been following, they know this man.
At least I'm prepared this time. But it's a paradox because if you make the statement that this person is now out of the house and therefore is no longer your child and he no longer has to be managed well by you, if you continue the logical thought there, then technically the elder has no children. So then it's a non-starter. Then we can't even think about this person or talk about this person because you just took away all his children. Because a person that is an elder, at least in our context, is older. Right? He has to be older by definition of the word.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that he's old enough for his children to be
Grown.
And if his children are grown, then they most likely have their families and are out of the home. So this person has no children. Well, then he can't be an elder.
Yeah.
So if you follow the logical conclusion of that kind of statement, then there's no more children, and now we're in a paradox. Right? So I don't think we can logically follow that conclusion and still fit everything together.
Yeah.
I think. Sorry, this is I'll leave it to this one. The true test is once that person's out on their own. What are they going to be like now? I think that's the true test.
And now I just wanted to say, so that was my probe, and you were, and my probe for you. Don't worry, you know this.
I
one,
know,
man.
I know,
You got this. Man. You got this, man.
you better be there.
No, he's ready. This guy, I know. The faithful child.
Yes.
Is he faithful to God, or is he faithful to this potential elder?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? And that is the problem, actually. It's a good one, right? And that's an argument that's also frequently made because of Timothy, actually, because it says he must manage his own household well, and then he has his children, in full subjection to him, or evidence, right? And so the argument becomes that this kid, without the reference necessarily, they don't look at Titus, right? They just look at Timothy. And I think that's the mistake in this kind of reasoning, is that this child needs to be faithful to their father, right? And not necessarily faithful to God. They need to respect and be in subjection to their father. And I think you can make that argument, but then if you go to Titus, it just says he needs to be a believing child, right? And then we had the discussion earlier. But then I would even then say, if you are faithful to your father, and if you are in subjection out of reverence to your father, and your father's the elder, chances are your father would have told you to become a Christian or would have encouraged you to become a Christian and to serve God faithfully. And so you not doing that shows that you are not
faithful,
obedient or not faithful to your father, right? So even there, you would fall foul of the qualification, right? And so so that's my argument that I would make there. And I had another one. The other one was just to say that when does your child stop being your child? You know, your child is your child is your child. Your children are your children. Once you brought them into this world, they yours. You don't stop at 18. It's not an 18-year job. This thing, right? So our parents would tell us, right? So our kids are still young, so we'll tell them. But yeah, gents.
My thought returned.
My
thought
ask for concluding comments.
I got my one.
Okay.
Yeah,
His
so
thought is back.
no, but this can be my concluding thought also. It's,
Efficiency.
yeah, there we go. Two stones with one bird. Is that it?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
two
yes.
birds with one stone. Let's go.
At least it's not
3
that.
cups of
Nah, so like I was thinking, as an elder, let's say I've got 4 children and 2 of them are faithful, 2 of them are not. Or let's make it more extreme. I've got 1 faithful child, 3 unfaithful. The unfaithful, imagine the impact that they would have on the flock. As an elder, it would be more detrimental to the flock if me being an elder as opposed to me being a member wanting my children to become faithful. Yeah, so as an elder, your accountability is way more elevated. Yes, you are a Christian, at the most basic level, you are still a Christian. But as an elder, the impact that you have and your children and your family, it's way more significant. Apart from the view or the perspective that people have of you, the impact that your family who are unfaithful have on the flock, that is way too detrimental for you to have the influence that is required for you to have in the church.
Yeah. So interesting you mentioned that. The scripture that came to mind, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 17. Obey them that have rule over you and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls as they that must give an account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you. The elders are going to have to, they're going to be held accountable for what they do and for their role, amongst the flock. And so I think it's an important, office to step into. The Lord's going to hold you to account. And if they are, and I mean obviously just as a regular Christian, if you cause others to stumble, you're gonna have to answer for that. As an elder, you need to watch over the flock. God, you're gonna have to give an account. They watch over our souls, and they must give an account. So I think I think that becomes even more important. So that was your concluding comment.
Yeah, no, I just thought of like let's say you're an actual shepherd, and you have the actual flock of sheep, and so you are looking after my sheep, but you also have your own sheep. But you want your sheep to be part of this flock, but your sheep they throw the sheep away from where they're supposed to. They throw them towards danger. It would have been better if you, the shepherd, kept your flock aside and actually got them in order before introducing them to the flock.
Yeah, and I think my concluding comment would be exactly that, right? And it's the verse 5 principle. You need to manage if you can't manage your own household well, how are you going to manage the house of the church of God? That's the question that's being asked, and I think that's going to be the litmus test, right? That's you manage your own household well. Your kids are faithful. They're faithful to you. They're faithful to God. They respect you. They revere you. They're in subjection to you, and they are not being accused of, unruly conduct with debaucheries. So I think that would be my concluding comment.
Yeah, I think much of the same. Because the responsibility of this person is to be able to lead others to God. So we look at the family and we check how well has he done, leading his own to God, and then we give him the responsibility of trying to lead all of these other souls also to God. So I think it extends on that. You have managed this little well. Let's see if you can manage the much, right?
Yeah.
And then just another thought as well. The same way with the obedience and the child in us, the child out of us. The child shows his obedience when he's out of your presence, right? So it's not only is he going to be obedient while I'm watching over him, but is he going to be obedient when I'm not watching over him? And I think with the congregation as well, because my impact in the congregation needs to be felt when I'm there and when I'm not there. When they are with me on a Sunday morning and I'm encouraging them, great. But when they go to work on Monday and they deal with life's challenges and they deal with all these other things, is their faithfulness extending outside of the let's say the cluster of the home? You know what I'm saying? So yes, there is going to be a time when the elder is not actively looking over you. Are you still then obedient? So I just think that obedience must extend beyond the minimal, and it must be seen in a continual lifestyle. And if I can encourage my family to do that, then I think I can be trusted to be able to encourage the church to do that as well.
I like you, Matthew. Your talents, parable, you wrote it in there. I like it.
It's the next episode. Okay, so yeah, I think that's good, gents. I think we've covered faithful children, quite well. I think there are definitely some stuff that I know some of our viewers, you may have some thoughts, you may have some views. Please share those with us. How do you look at this passage? What do you think it should look like for an elder that has faithful children, and how do you interpret some of these passages? We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, please pop that into the comment section as well. Thank you so much for those who've been engaging with us. Thank you for all the prayers. We really appreciate that. We prep and we put these things together and we do our best to present, as best as possible from the Bible and what it says. Because that's what we do at the Plain Truth Podcast. We're doing the Plain Truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So thank you so much for continuing this journey with us. Please continue to pray for us. And like, comment, subscribe, share the video far and wide. And thank you so much. We'll see you on the next episode.